welcome everyone to today's Synergist product demo webinar, OHD, Quantifit, and QuantiCheck. I'm Kay Bechtold, Managing Editor of the Synergist, the magazine of AIHA. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially OHD for sponsoring this webinar. Today's product demo is scheduled for 30 minutes, and we have a lot to cover. So I'm going to dive right in and quickly introduce today's speakers, Stephanie Lynch and Booth Armstrong. Stephanie Lynch is OHD's Industrial Hygiene Product Manager. She has a background in industrial hygiene and safety across multiple industries and is a skilled researcher with a broad knowledge of respiratory protection and fit testing. Booth Armstrong, OHD's National Sales Manager, is uniquely prepared to provide the OHD Quantifit and QuantiCheck overview. He has provided this training for industry-leading organizations in the first responder, industrial, and occupational medical markets. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Stephanie and Booth.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Lynch, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm OHD's Industrial Hygiene Product Manager, and I'm joined today by our National Sales Manager, Booth Armstrong. And Booth's going to get us started with a little bit of history about us and our company.
Very good. My OHD is based in Birmingham, Alabama. OHD was birthed in 1992, and we are the owners of a proprietary technology called controlled negative pressure, which you'll learn a lot about today. Controlled negative pressure is the technology that Quantifit utilizes to challenge the fit and integrity of a respirator, and we're also now the world's exclusive, we represent the QuantiCheck technology exclusively around the world, and we're excited about getting a chance to present that to everybody today. And that's a little bit about OHD's history.
Okay, so we just want to brush through some quick basics. A fit test is the use of a protocol to quantitatively or qualitatively evaluate the fit of a respirator on an individual. The purpose of the fit test is to identify the specific make, model, style, and size of a respirator that is best suited for each individual employee. And so fit testing is then, of course, an integral part of your respiratory protection program. So next slide. Let's talk about why we do fit tests. So, of course, we do it just to make sure that our employees are protected from the respiratory hazards that they face, and are also well-trained on the use of their respirator, but we also do it because we're regulated to do so. So in the U.S., OSHA requires fit testing, but also several other national and international organizations require it also. So I want to just dive straight into what I know best, what I'm sure Booth knows best, the controlled negative pressure, or CNP, method of quantitative fit testing. As Booth mentioned, CNP is the patented fit test technology that's applied by the OHD Quantifit, and it utilizes negative pressure as a direct measure of respirator leakage. So we use air as the challenge agent. Simply put, when the Quantifit creates and maintains a controlled negative pressure that's mimicking the inhale of a person working at a moderate rate, it's creating an environment that will have septillions of air molecules fighting to get into the mask in any way possible. So to create and maintain a negative pressure, the user is going to take a comfortable breath and hold it. The adapter valve is going to close to seal the respirator. This is accomplished with the trigger button. And then Quantifit pulls air out until it reaches a set challenge pressure that's associated with that breathing rate within the respirator. If no leak was detected, then the pressure would remain constant. And so when leak is detected, then the Quantifit is going to work to remove air until the challenge pressure within the respirator has been achieved. And it's going to do that continually for 8 seconds. And during that 8 seconds, it's tracking the exact amount of air that it has removed. And that's how it's going to calculate that leak rate. And this is what makes it a direct measurement of leak. So CNP is globally recognized, and it's an approved respirator fit testing technology. We use scientifically established breathing rates that are going to challenge the respirator at a higher level than the resting breathing rate you would typically see in a fit test. We also create the negative pressure and control it, and when we do that, we're able to precisely measure the leak rate in cubic centimeters per minute. And so then, of course, the higher the leak rate, the lower the reported fit factor, and vice versa. So the Quantifit converts the leak rate that it is measured into a fit factor. To do this, it's taking the modeled breathing rate and dividing it by the measured leak rate. And this is how you get each individual exercise's fit factor. And another way to look at this is that it's the ratio of total air inhaled to the possibly contaminated air inhaled. Our OSHA-approved Redon protocol is 5 steps, taking just under 2 minutes. It is the only test that allows for multiple donnings to ensure or to establish the user's ability to consistently achieve a good fit. So you can show that they're very well acquainted with using and donning their respiratory protection. And I don't want to then breeze through too quickly, but I just want to get us to the meat and potatoes demonstration. So real fast, let's go through some Quantifit features and benefits. Go on to the next one, Booth. So first, we have the speed. The Quantifit is fast, so you won't have to worry about particle counts because we're challenging the respirator with air. You're not going to have to purge your particles. You're not going to have to create particles within your environment. You can use any environment. Because we use air as opposed to those particles, you're going to be able to test anywhere, almost anywhere, including outdoors. You don't have to block off any ventilation or probe any of your respirators. CMP is the only available fit testing technology that directly measures leakage, and scientific studies have shown that we detect more leakage than aerosol-based methods. And basically with that, those are just some of our advantages. We're going to head over to Booth with the Quantifit demonstration.
Very good. Now, when we do this demonstration, if you want to go to your view options, which are located at the top left module, you'll be able to hover over and change your view options. If you have questions, you can talk to the host and they'll help you set the view you want. What we're going to do is we're going to transition out of the presentation and actually pull you into our software. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to demonstrate the OHD controlled negative pressure quantitative fit test. And today we're going to fit test on this 3M 6500 series mask. And what you're going to be able to see is you're going to experience everything that Dr. Lynch just talked about. You're going to get to experience the speed of our 5-step 2-minute fit test. You're going to get to experience the fact that I didn't have to have any consumables to run the device, no alcohol or any type of other consumable. I'm going to be able to test without any concern about the environment of this room. It could be a small room, big room, clean room, dirty room, indoors, outdoors. I can test anywhere with controlled negative pressure. You're also going to get to experience that I'm going to do this fit test without probing the mask, without running the probe into the breathing zone. These are all unique features to the controlled negative pressure quantitative test. I'm also going to get a chance to do a very accurate challenge to the respirator. Like Dr. Lynch said, it's going to challenge that seal with air, and it's going to determine the fit and integrity of that mask based off of how much air penetrates the seal of that mask. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this test started. You're going to see, I like to tell everybody we're from Alabama, so we've tried to bubble-proof this. It's going to give you big, bold instructions on what it wants you to do as a test subject, and we're just going to follow the instructions as it leads us through the test. Now, real quick, before I jump into this test, I want to give you a little bit of background on what's happening with this graph right here. The vertical axis of the graph is going to be the pressure that the Quantifit wants to establish in the respirator. The horizontal line is going to be the time the Quantifit wants to create and hold that pressure. So what you'll see when I jump into this respirator, when I'm ready to activate the Quantifit, all I'm going to do is press and hold this button. What you'll see on that graph is you'll see a line running up to that graph. That's the Quantifit evacuating the air, using that scientifically validated breathing rate that Dr. Lynch spoke of. It's evacuating the air out of the respirator. When it reaches that red line, it's communicating that it's established a negative pressure in the respirator that it wants. What it will then do is hold that pressure until we get to this 8-second mark. And for the time that it's got that pressure created, it's asking that one question: how much air am I finding? The more air it finds, the lower our fit factor. The less air it finds, the higher our fit factor. The thought process is, if this is the right size respirator for me, if I don it properly, if there's no mask integrity issue, or if I don't have anything impeding face-to-seal contact, I should be able to put this respirator under a negative pressure for a short period of time, and I should be able to find very little leakage that penetrates the mask. With that said, I'm going to jump in and perform the fit test now. Step number 3, I'm shaking my head and I'm talking and breathing. I come to a stop. Step number 4 is where I remove the respirator. Once again, like Dr. Lynch communicated, this is challenging my ability to don this respirator properly. Get it centered up, straps tightened appropriately, and good fit. My final step, I'm going to remove and read on. That's the completion of an OHD fit test. What we'll do now is we'll get this handed back over to Dr. Lynch so we can continue through our presentation.
All right. So you got to see how the Quantifit is working. But what we're going to go into now is actually something we're pretty excited about. It's our very new device, and it's the QuantiCheck. So everyone is probably familiar with conventional user seal checks, where you're either doing the positive pressure check, where you're covering that exhalation valve and exhaling to see if it's holding the air, or the negative pressure check, where you're covering up your inhalation valves, taking the breath in, and seeing if it stays in that collapsed mode, right? And I would say that if you're familiar with that, then you also know that we're probably not always doing it correctly. So next slide. So our user seal checks are actually required by regulation, but what you'll see a lot in the field is people just doing a real quick check where they're only taking that inhale for just a moment, and they're only doing that positive check for just that second, and really it's not giving you much more information than just whether you think your mask is fitting. So what we've got now is actually a device that's going to quantitatively check that donning for you. So it's not a substitute for your fit test, but it's kind of giving you that bump check throughout the year. With any donning, you could just see, how's my mask fitting you? It could be a good training tool to figure out how good you're getting at putting on your respirator correctly. And so that is the QuantiCheck. And it's the world's first quantitative seal check instrument. It has an app, so you're able to clearly see some of the issues you might be having with your fit. So within your respiratory protection program, once that fit test has been conducted to determine the best respirator for a particular wearer, these user seal checks should be performed every time the respirator is put on to confirm an adequate seal. But these subjective methods are clearly leaving a lot to be desired. Like I mentioned, if you think your mask fits, then if you perform a typical wearer seal check, and you're probably a poorly performed one, it's not going to provide much more confidence than that. And this check is supposed to be your last line of defense. If an adequate seal cannot be confirmed by your check, then you should not enter a hazardous area. So basically in practice, we see these checks often overlooked entirely, and this is likely, at least in part, due to the lack of perceived and actual value. So that's where the QuantiCheck comes in. It's the first ever quantitative user seal check device, and so now wearers can quickly and easily complete a wearer seal check, a user seal check, with measurable and recordable accuracy. Go on to that next slide. Actually, go one more ahead, Booth, for me. I pretty much covered all of that. Respirator wearers are currently required to rely on their own perception of the pressure buildup and or loss to perform that seal check. And so that's going to leave a lot of that room for error and doubt. And research has also shown that this is unreliable at best. So what this instrument is hoping to do is take out that doubt, removing the doubt. The system is evaluating the seal and integrity of the mask using a pressure sensor. It's a quick but accurate check of the protection that's being provided by your respirator. It has the optional app, but it also saves each test on the device. So both the employer and the employee would be able to have more confidence in the protection provided by their respirators. You also, if you're using that app, you might be able to identify certain failures with your mask over time. If you're typically passing at a certain mark and you start to see a steady decline, you'd be able to catch it before it becomes a catastrophic leak. So let's watch Booth walk through a quick QuantiCheck user seal check.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Lynch. So very excited about this new technology. The implementation of it is very, very simple. The QuantiCheck will connect to your respirator the exact same way a filter would. This would also be another time where you might want to go and change your view to where you can really enlarge your camera view so you can see the QuantiCheck in action. So right now I am testing a Scott SCBA mask. It can connect to all of your SCBAs. It's got bases that will allow you to connect it to your different APR masks, 3M, North, MSA, etc. So it connects to the respirator the same way a filter would. And then the user who's implementing this technology simply has three jobs, three things that they're going to do. One, the QuantiCheck has the ability where you close it by simply pressing the cap or the head of the unit into its base. And that is where you're going to then lock off air to the respirator, which is going to be a lot easier to lock off air that way versus using your hand like Dr. Lynch explained earlier with the user seal check. Now, once you've got it closed and you've got air locked off to the respirator, the test subject is going to do the same practice that they would on a user seal check. They're going to draw one sharp, quick breath. They're not going to continually breathe in. They're not going to, just breathe in for a second. They're going to draw a sharp breath, and they're going to lock off their respiratory system and hold their breath for the period of time that's going to allow this technology to monitor the pressure decay and determine whether the mask is good or not good. And this will allow, like Dr. Lynch said, us to quantitatively monitor the fit and integrity of a respirator throughout a year versus dependent upon 2 fit tests done on an annual, if not longer basis, and then user seal checks in between. So to show you this in action, I'm actually going to walk up to the camera so you can really see the technology being utilized in action and give you a close look on that. So. One thing I need to communicate real quick is when the device is on, I'm going to show you. Let me give you a quick tutorial on the lights. When the device is on, you'll see a purple flashing light. When you close the device and you put it under pressure, you'll see that light goes solid purple, okay? If it detects leakage and it's not a good fitting respirator or there's an integrity issue, it's going to flash red. And if it's a good fitting respirator, it will go solid green. I needed to communicate that to you before I did the test, so forgive me for that little mix-up right there, and now we'll get into our testing position. All right, so we're ready. You can see we've got the flashing purple light, and when we're ready, we'll just close it and breathe in. So we're good to go there. You can see if I put a finger in the seal right there, if I close it. So that should give you a look at how the QuantiCheck can quantitatively bump check or fit check a respirator. Dr. Lynch, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Booth. We are well aware that that was a lot to digest in a short amount of time, and we really appreciate everyone's time and attention. Does anyone have any questions that we can address really quick with this last few minutes that we have?
Okay, great. Thank you, Stephanie and Booth. This is Kay again. Looks like we have about 6 or 7 minutes left for questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the chat window on the right side of your screen and send to all panelists. Stephanie and Booth, the first question we have is from Jennifer, who asks, can the QuantiCheck be used with an APR?
I can take that. Yes, the QuantiCheck absolutely can be used with an APR. We have the QuantiCheck technology can be outfitted with different bases where you could, if you had 3M per se, you could have a base. Naturally lead to the next question, what would you do with the out of the APR? The QuantiCheck comes with a little cap that will allow you to cap one side and connect the QuantiCheck technology to the other side. So you would have both sides capped, and then you would just quantitatively bump check your MSAs, your Norths, your 3Ms, your et cetera, with the QuantiCheck. So that's absolutely a capability of the technology, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is, can this be used with N95 masks, and can you connect to a computer so that the fit test results can be saved in a database?
I'm so sorry. Am I back to being able to be heard?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I lost. So sorry, everyone. So we are not able to test N95 respirators because of how we create the controlled negative pressure within the respirator currently, but you can absolutely connect to a computer, and that's what Booth was actually showing the software pulled up. So all the fit test results can be saved in a database.
Great, thank you. Oh, sorry, Booth, did you have something to add?
No, not really. I mean, on the disposable respirators, you know, OSHA requires those to be qualitatively tested. This device was made to do the fastest, the easiest, the most accurate fit test to your masks that are providing the highest levels of protection. If we tried to put a disposable under a negative pressure, we'd simply fail it every time. The genesis of this technology was to do the best test to your elastomeric or rubber seal respirator. So just would share that.
Okay, great. Our next question comes from Adam, who asks, can you comment on disinfecting hoses on the Quantifit during COVID and what your recommendations are?
I can comment on that one, and it's funny, we sort of assumed we would get this question. So our comment on that is that there's no aspect of fit testing other than the fact, let me take a step back. So because of how respirators function, elastomeric respirators function with that exhaust valve in place, and because of how fit testing is performed with the filters off of the respirator, neither person in that process is being protected. So what we want to make sure that we're doing right now is implementing all of the same procedures that we're using in our daily lives to mitigate that risk. So you're going to want to, move your fit testing outside. You're going to have that social distancing. You're going to want to have the use of face coverings for any aspect that's possible. And then as far as the disinfecting of the hoses, they are absolutely capable of being, submerged and disinfected in that way. But the main concern is just the existence of the other person in that space. So when you're allowing that time in between subjects, you're not going to have the concern of one subject interacting with the tubes and producing something that's going to hang out in those tubes that then the next person comes up and sucks back in. That's not your risk. All of the air that gets pulled into the Quantifit when it does a test is from the outside room or any appropriate use of the Quantifit. That being said, you absolutely can submerge those tubes. Just make sure that anytime before you go into a subsequent test, they're completely dry, which would typically mean you'd have to have an extra set of tubes that you're rotating. Yes, okay, all of that information is available on our website. Yes.
Okay, great. I think we just have time for one last question. And that is, how does OHD's technology differ from others in terms of safety when it comes to fit testing during a global pandemic?
So I kind of touched on that, but it's a good point, and it is that, so with using controlled negative pressure and using air as the challenge agent, you're able to test outside. So you don't have to be in a little room where you've cut off the ventilation in order to keep your particle counts high. You can be outside, or you can be in an open bay. You're also able to maintain that social distance. So these are all beneficial aspects of the use of controlled negative pressure during this pandemic.
Okay, great. Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We'll be sharing all questions from today's event with OHD, so if we didn't get to your question, please know that they'll reach out to you directly. My thanks to Stephanie Lynch and Booth Armstrong for their presentation, to OHD for sponsoring today's webinar, and to all of our participants. Please keep an eye out for announcements of future Synergist webinars.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you all.
All right, this was great. Thank you so much. This actually concludes today's webcast. Thank you all for attending. The recording will be available at AIHA.webvent.tv. We will send all registrants an email tomorrow with this link. And please visit our event calendar to sign up for future webcasts.